Yeah, we are 1 week from the great holiday of Thanksgiving. And we're always thankful to have Perry Orth join us on Thursdays to talk some ball. All right, so I got to tell you something. You got called out last Friday. We didn't tee it up. It was unprompted. We had nothing to do with it. But I'm not so sure there's anything you can do about it because we were talking about the run game with LaNorris, and Coach Mangus went deep into the well and brought up your 66-yard run in College Station and said it was the longest run in college football history, not by yardage, but by time.
Well, what I have to say to that is that if that is the truth, then I want some kind of Guinness Book of World Records statue that I can put in my office that gives me credit for the longest rush in college football history. Great play call, by the way, by GA. GA is a hell of a play caller, if you guys didn't know that or not. But let me tell you, he specifically that game, and golly, a handful of others, he always did know, even dating back to when Connor was playing or when Dylan was playing or when I was playing, he always had the right time to draw up the QB draw. And I don't know how. He didn't care if it was me running, if it was Dylan running. Obviously, Connor was more fleet of foot, but it didn't matter. He felt, and Sean Elliott was a big part in that as well. Sean was a big quarterback draw guy. He didn't care. He was like, I don't really care if you're super fast or not. You're athletic enough to at least move. And again, it always gives teams, the threat of having to defend on 11 on 11. And I think I've told you guys this before. When so obviously that coaching transition happened. So that was when Kurt Roper came in and started taking over play calls. And when we were meeting for like one of the very first meetings we ever had collectively, obviously he didn't really know much about me other than some film and maybe some stats and some other things. But he was like grouping us in our quarterback room based off of dual threat and pocket passer. And he put me with the dual threat guys with McElwain and Nunez at the time. And I remember the look Michael Scarnecchia gave me in that room. What the F does he think he's doing putting you in that group? It was amazing. And still to this day, I think even when I go on 107.5 here in Columbia, they always say it's like our dual threat quarterback, Perry Orth, is here. So it's the same. So hey, you know what? If I'm gonna be tabbed with the longest timed rush in American football history, I want a plaque from the Guinness Book of World Record. That's all. That's my only ask. And you can tell GA I said that. I said if GA can go to the committee and lobby on my behalf, I'll owe him a cold one.
It is literally
your name should be on the ramps for that, Perry. I mean, that's exactly.
I you know what? I'm gonna go see Coach Tanner. I might just keep driving right into campus today.
Roll that, dude. It's one of my favorite plays of all time. I mean, I actually tell that story a lot, and I wasn't even on Friday's show. I was in Columbia, but or just had gotten to Columbia, but it was. I love that play. I mean, and you're right. What a play call. Because there was nobody. I mean, it was like, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that was a tough one. Had Brandon Wiles not gotten injured, GA told me one time he thinks y'all would have won that one.
Yeah,
at the end there.
I agree. We had a couple. I mean, golly, go back. I hate going back and talking about it because it frustrates me because the way that we had some of our teammates playing and their attitudes, and we deserve to be and have the record that we did. But we lost way too many games by such a thin margin. And I tell you, I think this parlays exactly into what happened Saturday. But how many times, guys, have you watched a South Carolina football game and the one-handed Luther Burden or the Marquez North, if that was his name at Tennessee, with the catch on the helmet, or that one play that the other team made to give us the loss? Well, I happened to be on 4 or 5 of the opposite side of what happened on Saturday, and I tell you, it hurts when you lose. But I was one of the lucky ones to attend the game Saturday night, and can't even imagine the feeling the players had and the coaches had after a big win like that. Just remarkable. And every week, I don't like to come on here and say, Perry was right. You guys are all idiots except for me. But I remember after the Ole Miss game, I was made fun of and told I was an idiot for thinking that Dowell Loggains was doing a good job this year. And I said, well, we need to take a body of work and review it and analyze it and then make a determination of, hey, has he done good at his job and has he not? I would be one to say that he's called some pretty damn good games. The pop pass to Josh Simon, great play call coming out of a timeout or player injury, basically timeout. The shovel pass with pressure coming into his face late, and obviously Rocket made a great play. But yeah, we hit a little bit of a stalemate on offense. But great players can immediately flip the course of a game and get a play caller back into a routine and into a rhythm, and that's what happened. But I will say, though, because I can't give 100% of the credit to Dowell, but I tell you, the play, obviously, that changed the game was when LaNorris on the 3rd and long breaks that tackle, rolls back out left, and hits the tight end for a first down. Yeah. Changed the dynamic and momentum of the game. And at the end of the day, Coach Muschamp said it to me and to our team when he first got there, and I have echoed that even to this day, that it is a player's game, and it always will be. There was nothing schematic about that play. That was LaNorris was the best football player on the field Saturday night, and he made a football play. And he did 5 more times for another 350 yards. And boys, I can tell you this: we got one special guy behind the center right now. And we've been waiting for this one, and no disrespect to any of the quarterbacks that have come before him, because we've had some damn good ones, especially within the last decade, with Connor and Dylan and Garcia and Jake and all those guys. But man, this dude is different.
Well, you're right, and you have been right throughout the year. You deserve that credit. There's a couple different ways I want to go. So we'll start with this, and then we'll come back to some of the play calling. LaNorris got the football in his hands with 1:27 to go in the first half on Saturday night. They drove right down the field and scored. And then with 1:02 to go in the second half, after that deflating touchdown, he put his helmet on, trucked back out there, got him down the field, and they won the game. So, quote unquote, 2-minute drill, but really 1-minute drill, if you think about it, for both of them. 14 points, redshirt freshman quarterback. What does that tell you?
He's poised, man. I mean, go back and look at, even in the beginning of the season when he was, quote on, a young guy and still learning the ropes, etc. He has every tool that you could possibly aspire to have as a quarterback. He's got the speed, the size, the ability from an arm strength and accuracy standpoint. Now, he let one sail early in the game, which ended up being a pick, but defense went out and smothered Missouri at that time in the game and really didn't affect the game at all. But
that one's on me, because I gave the stat last week that he had thrown 71 straight passes without a pick. So I'll wear
thanks
that.
a lot. Yep, there you go.
Yep. Not bad.
But yeah, he's settled in. He's the guy. He's not inexperienced. He's played in 9 games now, and has played pretty damn well overall. And I tell you, the last 5 to 6 games, he's really played well. And he's the guy that, you're listening to the national guys talk that, he's having rumors and discussions of him being the number 1 quarterback taken in next year's draft.
To your point, I'm going to skip over that last sentence there, because we'd like to keep him around for another couple years. But you're talking about his skill set and how good he is. To back that point up, by the way, in his last 5 games, He's averaging 250 yards per game through the air. He's thrown 12 touchdowns to 2 picks. He's completed 66% of his passes, and he's rushed it for 47 yards per game and a touchdown. All right, back to what you were talking about with Coach Loggains. Perry, I mean, you know what it's like to be a quarterback in the SEC. You know what it's like to be a quarterback in the SEC where you're just getting your feet underneath you. You know what it's like to be a quarterback in the SEC where I've been around a while. Okay. I know what this thing looks like. I know how it works. You also know what it's like to call plays. So you're a very unique person to be able to have this conversation with. Tell us the difference in designing an offense, running an offense, executing an offense with a quarterback who's still trying to get things figured out versus a quarterback who's settled into his role.
Yeah, I mean, it's where it's the most different is you have a lot more freedom as a play caller. So I'll start there, knowing that, hey, here's what I'm expecting them to be in. Here's the call behind it, but here are the keys. If there's something else that you like, that you feel good with, call it, change it, right? Do what you feel that you need to do to get us in the best chance, right? Because I don't have that behind the center vision, right? There might be some tip that we watched in film that from my angle and my visual that you can see that I can't, right? So make that call versus a young quarterback. You're trying to piecemeal the perfect play, certainly on the passes, the perfect pass play to give him the chance so you don't go, oh shit, I just put him in a terrible situation, and please, for the love of God, don't turn the ball over because you just called a bad play. Or say, it's a lot different in college than high school, whereas high school you kind of almost know what they're going to be in, whereas college you're playing probabilities and stats. Whereas you call a play and they change the coverage and you see it, you're praying, please, for the love of God, see it, number one. And two, if you don't see it, don't throw it to the other team. And I've been on both sides of all of it. I've been the player where I've seen it and made the right change. I've been the player where I didn't see it and threw a pick. I've been the coach where I saw it and called the right play, and I've been the coach where I saw it and made the wrong play and the quarterback threw a pick, right? So to your point, I have seen a lot of the different angles, but there's so much more pressure on the offense coordinator, and I'm going to repeat what I've said over and over. When you don't create explosive plays, when the players don't create explosive plays on their own, it is incredibly challenging to manufacture explosive plays just simply by play calls, drive after drive after drive at this level. Your guys have to make plays, right? So like the deep ball to Nick Harbor, not the touchdown, but the one later in the second half that was on, I think it was 4th down or 3rd and long. Like, good play call. He got the matchup, perfect throw, great catch. Those are players making plays. Or the comeback that he threw to the unknown guy that came out of nowhere and looked like, Calvin Johnson out there at the end of the game that had the 2 catches for the incredibly long yards. What's his name?
Oh,
Delvon Campbell.
Yeah, man.
I mean, the dude comes out there and looks like Calvin Johnson, and we're all in the stands trying to figure out, number one, who that is, and two, where have you been, my friend? And he makes 2 amazing plays. Go back to the last drive. LaNorris, I saw this on Twitter, and I agree with the person that posted it. The development of LaNorris, where he climbed the pocket, slid right, set his feet, threw the dig coming across the field. Dude, that's big-time quarterback. I don't care if you're a freshman or you're in your 10th year in the league. That is big-time quarterbacking. And that turned into a bit of an explosive play. And then obviously the shovel pass wasn't exactly the hardest play for LaNorris, but another explosive play. I mean, Rocket broke 3 tackles to get into the end zone. So the creation of explosive plays is really hard. But again, it goes back to the players making that first guy miss, like we've talked about, and then just exploding into the next level, which, I mean, Davon Campbell and obviously Rocket LaNorris have the ability to, but
Yeah.
I mean, even like the slip screen we threw to our guy Josh Brown or
Jared Brown. Yeah, I was going to say that. That was pretty. He ran away.
He ran away. He separated. Now I'll probably give the tip of the cap to the OC on that, but still, it was still a great run after catch. You got to give the kid credit. So
who was it? Was it Vershawn was out there blocking too, and Torricelli Simpkins had a good block on that play as well.
Yeah, I think Vershawn was like way downfield
Yeah.
making the block. Yeah.
The line seems to like to get out there and block on screens.
So so overall, very impressed with. I am. I tell you, I would tell you I'd probably package it a little lighter than, oh yeah, Dowell's just not getting it done. I'd probably say, oh, this, that. We got a shot, guys. I mean, we are even listening to the kids in their press conferences, man, which I don't listen to all of them. I'll listen to maybe 30 seconds if they come up on Twitter, but people asking them already about the Clemson game, and they're saying, nah, we're on Wofford. Like the maturity of these guys, like and you got to give credit because it all starts at the top, and you got to give credit to Coach Beamer. And I've said it on this show this year. There's something different about Coach Beamer, and just listening to him as he talks. I don't know if it's just maturity in that role, but I mean he's doing a hell of a job. And even dating back to when we lost to LSU, like he sounded different. He seemed in control and in command, still confident in his team. It's hard to sit here and complain about the trajectory on the program. And I was talking to a friend this morning. This is a really interesting, and I don't want to skip over Wofford, but we're fans, so we're allowed to. The Clemson game is a really interesting game to me. It has I know our records were different, but it has an eerie similarity, in my opinion, to the 2014 game. Mm-hmm. I know they're both at Clemson, but I feel like our trajectory of our program is here. And I'm not going to say Clemson's is downhill, right? But it's at least stagnant. Like there's not like watching Clemson play. And I asked my partner in my business the same thing. I said, where's Clemson better than South Carolina in a position group?
You know what? We actually brought this up a couple weeks ago. I don't think there's a definitive answer. At the time, I would have, or a few weeks ago, I'm sorry. The time, Perry, I would have said quarterback based on experience. But we've talked all week about how there's not a QB in the SEC right now playing that better than LaNorris Sellers. So I'm sure as hell not going to say that now. Right.
Their receivers may prove out to be better. They got Wesco and Moore are good for freshmen. Antonio Williams is coming on.
That was the one position that he said.
Carolina, I mean, it seems like it's a different guy every week. They probably don't have the superstars, but I mean, they're still. I mean, that's a good point. They're still throwing the ball.
We hadn't said that in a decade, though, guys. Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of years where you looked on the matchup, you looked on the matchup board, and you're like, do we even have a position group that is better than in one singular area of the field? Yeah. Right.
I think 2 years ago, it was about 50-50. The edge went to Carolina at the quarterback position, went to Carolina at the wide receiver position because Juice was here, Leggett was here, those guys were here.
Clemson's linebackers were much better than South Carolina's.
Yeah. It might not be 50-50.
Or then.
Yeah.
I got a stat for you. Was better.
Perry, I got a stat for you. I love this. Hopefully, JC. I've been filling JC up with stats today, so he can write about them and tell everybody that he found them himself. But that's fine. That's what we're here for. We're brothers. An explosive play is 12 plus yards in the run game, 18 plus yards in the pass game. The last 12 drives that Carolina has had an explosive on it in the pass game, they've scored a touchdown. Whoa. That's crazy.
I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but they're huge, man.
Yeah.
I mean, when your players are making those plays, I mean, that's been my number one complaint this season. And I don't want to say complaint. My number one highlighted point from an offensive standpoint, why our yardage hasn't been through the roof, is other than Rocket and LaNorris, on the perimeter, we haven't. I don't want to say don't, because it has changed. We were not, our players were not having the run after catch that you would aspire them to, but the last few weeks they have, and there's the difference in the yardage. And yeah, explosive plays are huge. I mean, throughout the course of the game, all things considering, most football games are pretty even, but it's those big chunk plays that change the game, right? Bobby Bowden's famous for saying it. You're only 2 to 3 blue chip players away from a national championship, right? He used to say that all the time. I remember that as a kid. I remember hearing him say, just 2 or 3 blue chip players away from winning national championships. And no, this is no disrespect of the guys we have now. I think our receivers are playing well and they're good football players, but you have a blue chip, like a elite level receiver on this team, and LaNorris doesn't get hurt against LSU, and there's a good chance we're probably 9-1.
Yeah, they're in the playoffs today. I got a question for you. I want to turn you around a little bit, and I know we got like 3 minutes left with you, and we'll get you out of here. But in the Missouri game, again, I'm with you. I think this is the most important week of the year. You need to stay healthy and take care of business against Wofford, and don't fall asleep at the wheel. They're going to win the game, but continue to sharpen the knives, right, before you get to the upstate. But because that team in the upstate lingers next week, in the second half the other day, Missouri was successfully running the football against the Gamecocks. It felt like they ran for 300 yards. They didn't. They ran for 142, I think, in the game total. But in the second half, Eli had it figured out, and that was the first time we'd seen that all year against this Gamecock defense. What was your version of what was going on there, and how did they fix it?
Yeah, it was the outside zone or the stretch play where they were running on edges, and that's a big thing when you're playing teams with good fronts, is that you want to get them on angles, right? So they don't have the ability to just, steam rush ahead and blow gaps up. And when you get moving like that, at the snap of the ball, your offensive linemen are literally trying to reach to the next gap, right? So if you're the tackle and you don't have an attached tight end, you're literally like taking a wide step and blocking the imaginary guy first thing outside of you. If you have something head up to inside of you, you're not touching him and you're going to the next guy. Whereas you start running on angles and somebody gets out of gap, out of their gap on defense, and those running lanes became pretty strong. And, I don't know if Missouri is a team that regularly does that or we weren't prepared, but that's an area that certainly needs to be cleaned up. And it needs to be cleaned up not from we don't have the talent to do it, just making sure that even as those offensive linemen are running, right, those gaps that you're, supposed to be playing as a defender, they change, right? Everything moves over, one more gap to the right or to the left. So, identifying it, and I know Coach White, he'll find the solution to get those reps in. But yeah, I mean, they had us worried. I mean, they got under center and they ran that outside zone as good as shit anybody I've seen. And I think our defensive ends got out of line a little bit. I think that they were trying to jump around it and kind of get by it through some type of a pass rush technique. And on those outside zones, whoever is playing that outside contain, they have to set that edge and push it back inside, because then if everybody then plays their gap from there, there's nowhere to run the football. But if you don't set that edge and that person on the outside, that person, I say the tackle or tight end, is able to get movement, it's hard to stop, man, because then they can run outside, then you start separating that gap, and then you can jump cut it and get north, and it's a bear. So they'll address it. I'm not crazy concerned. And of the 2 games that we have left, I don't think either team runs the ball as well as Missouri does. But nonetheless, I would fully expect to see a little bit of that Saturday, and then maybe even again when we play Clemson.
All right, final quick one for you here. It's going to be a big day on Saturday. It's Military Appreciation Day, and we all love our military around here. No question about that. But equally as important in this great state, it is Senior Day, and this is just an amazing group of seniors that are going to walk across the field. Some of them not quite there, but they will walk in anticipation of the draft potentially. Perry, remembering your final day, walking out on that field with your family, what these kids will go through, and what this group has meant to South Carolina football.
Yeah, I think this group has meant a ton. It's turning of the page of some pretty tough years and a tough era of South Carolina football. And to bridge that gap and to be the grunt mules to have to go through the crap to get us back to a level of relevancy. But it's important. It's important to go there and cheer those folks on and support them, because, having done it, which is scary to say, 8 years ago, I actually got a Facebook notification of the picture that my parents took on the field. It was 8 years ago yesterday. And I mean,
Wow.
it was a hard day because, you know, my whole life, as a lot of these players have this same dream. Your dream, your entire life as a kid is to get to that level, and you're on your senior day. Like, holy cow, this is the last time I'm going to be running out in 2001. I have no idea what the rest of my life looks like, but to be there and to get an ovation, to hear your name called and people cheering for you and basically saying thank you for your contributions to the program, it means the world to the athletes. So I would say I'd echo what Coach Beamer said: get there early, and be there to cheer those guys on, because it will mean a ton. I promise you, it will mean a ton to them and their family.
Well, you mean a ton to us, and we look forward to talking with you next week. You'll be we'll get with you to get some things straightened out with Thanksgiving falling next Thursday. I know we've already talked this week, so stick to that schedule. We just haven't released it yet. But
Yeah.
Hey, man, have a wonderful weekend. Pull those Gamecocks through, and can't wait to talk about the Palmetto Bowl with you next week.
Yep. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks, Perry.